Let's take a look at the Twins shortstop situation for 2022 and beyond on today's episode of Locked On Twins.
You are Locked On Twins, your daily Minnesota Twins podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome to the Locked On Minnesota Twins podcast. Today is Thursday, October 28th, and I'm your gracious host, Nash Walker. Entering spooky season this weekend, Halloween, right around the corner on Sunday. Also, the Vikings playing against the Cowboys on Sunday Night Football. Go check out Luke Braun, Locked On Vikings. Seth Topol, the Wild, look like they have a good club this year. Locked On Wild. And then Ben Beacon with the Timberwolves getting a huge win over the Milwaukee Bucks last night on the road in Milwaukee. Just a different feel for this Wolves team. Ben Beacon's got you covered at Locked On Wolves. Check all of those guys out. I want to thank you for making Locked On Twins your first listen every single day. We are free and available on all podcast platforms. I want to do a preliminary look at the Twins shortstop situation because I think it is a big question this offseason. What are their options? What should they do? In my opinion, what they should do, and what I think they will do. So I'm going to predict what I think they will do after I lay out the situation the Twins have in front of them. First things first, I think last year I made the mistake talking too much about shortstop. I talked too much about the hole at short, what they could do to fill it, talking a lot about the free agents, and they ended up signing Andrelton Simmons, who was probably the second best shortstop in the market at the time, to Marcus Semien now, or at least on the same level in a different way with Didi Gregorius, who ended up having a terrible year, as did Simmons, as we know. Offensively, Marcus Semien is an MVP candidate. I think led baseball in our wins above replacement at Baseball Reference. So amazing year for Semien. He's back on the market. Seeing some news today, he's hiring Scott Boras, the Boras Corp, to represent him. Some people saying that means the Twins won't sign Marcus Semien. I don't know. Like, if the Twins offer enough money, I think Scott Boras is going to be fine advising Marcus Semien to sign off on any deal. I don't know why. Maybe I'm missing something with why that really impacts the Twins there. They can still sign whoever they want. The free agent still has to want to come to Minnesota. That's usually the biggest roadblock. Also, the money sometimes is a roadblock. But Marcus Semien's back on the market. We're talking a lot about Semien already because John Heyman linked him to the Twins. Also, last offseason, we knew the Twins were talking to Semien, and the Twins were close, it felt like at times, to securing a contract with Marcus Semien. Probably wouldn't have made that big of a difference this year if he would have done what he did for Toronto. But at the very least, you're getting back a nice package at the trade deadline and just more excitement for the team. You would have had 70 home runs up the middle potentially between Semien and Polanco. We're going to have free agent profiles on these guys, but I'm just going to look at it from a base standpoint today, and we'll talk about what's in front of the Twins. And then I'm going to give an potentially off-season blueprint for what I think may be a solution for the Twins this winter to solve not only the shortstop hole, but also the starting rotation. So basically what the Twins need to decide, and it's hard for me because I believe in Royce Lewis. I believe in the talent. I believe in him as an athlete. I believe in him as a ball player. I believe in him as a shortstop. I know there were questions before. He's uberly talented. I think there's reason to remain hopeful about Royce Lewis. There's a reason he was the number one pick. He hasn't played in 2 years. It's a question mark. It was a question mark before whether he could play shortstop, before tearing his ACL. He also wasn't very good in 2019 in the minors. He was great in the Arizona Fall League. I think he flashed a little bit of that upside, varying reports about how much that really means when a prospect rakes in the Fall League. But Royce Lewis he's a tremendous athlete. And I'm really excited about the potential that he's a Twin and that he's a guy. When you look, and I asked Matthew Trueblood this preseason before the season started, who's a guy who could potentially turn out to be a star for the Twins? One guy you look at, and he said Royce Lewis is a guy that you have to look at and say he could be that superstar, 5-tool, hit for power. I think Royce Lewis still has a chance to be an impact big leaguer for the Twins. So you don't want to block him. I will say, Royce Lewis is probably not going to make that much of an impact in 2021 for the Twins. He could. I'm bullish on Royce Lewis. He could, but it's really hard to tell yourself that he's going to make that big of an impact, or convince yourself that he's going to make that big of an impact in 2021. Now, in 2022, could he be the starting shortstop on opening day? Could he get to a point health-wise, at the plate, defensively, where he's your starting shortstop on opening day for a competitive team in 2022? I think so. I think he can. And you're still going to have Jorge Polanco who can fill in at short. You're still going to have Austin Martin who can fill in at short at that time. I think he can. And so I don't want this to be a we're forgetting about Royce Lewis situation. I'm not forgetting about Royce Lewis. He's a caveat in this entire discussion. I think he's the most important part of this discussion, while also recognizing that the Twins need to do what's best for the Twins. And this might be their best opportunity to sign a long-term shortstop. If Royce Lewis isn't their shortstop, very good chance he doesn't end up being their shortstop for a multitude of reasons. Multitude. If Austin Martin's not their shortstop, more so that he's just not really a shortstop, there's a bunch of reasons he may not end up there as well. If those two don't work out, there's really no one else in the system that's going to fill. So this offseason with these big 5 shortstops that are on the market, it gives you an opportunity. If you want to go for it, if you want to make that commitment, you absolutely can. I think there's a chance that the Twins will, because even if you sign Marcus Semien or Javier Baez or Carlos Correa, Corey Seager, we're going to talk about the viability of signing those guys as well and how realistic it is, because some of them I think are not realistic at all, won't happen. And others, I think there's a chance for various reasons. You can always move them, or you can move Royce Lewis to third base when Josh Donaldson is a free agent after 2023. If the Twins, decline his option for 2024, you can always move Polanco to third and have Baez or Seager, Story, whoever at second. You can put Royce Lewis at second. You can do a lot of different things. And you've seen with the Dodgers or whoever, the Yankees, they don't really concern themselves with too much talent, and you never should. Like, if you have an opportunity to sign a big-time player, do it. Worry about Royce Lewis. Worry about Austin Martin later. I can see that perception. I can see that viewpoint. But also, it's important to mention, if you lock up 5 years and $120 million into a shortstop, and then Royce Lewis ends up being a good shortstop himself, I mean, at that point, that's money that you could have spent on the rotation. That's money you could have spent in the bullpen or somewhere else where you have a hole. And in that case, like, it's not the most efficient way to spend your money if Royce Lewis ends up being a good shortstop. But that's a gamble, and that's another reason why this offseason is so important. Let's look at the big 5 after this word from rockauto.com. rockauto.com, great spot. With the ever-increasing numbers of makes and models, it's now impossible for your local chain auto parts store to stock all the parts you need. Why endure often pointless or seemingly intimidating questioning and wait while the person behind the counter orders the parts on their computer, choosing the only brand their warehouse happens to carry? You have computers with access to rockauto.com at home and in your pocket. Save time and money when using Rock Auto. Why choose to spend 30%, 50%, even 100% more for the same parts from a chain store or car dealership? Rock Auto is a family business serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. Rock Auto prices are reliably low for every customer. They have everything you could need: brake parts, tail lamps, motor oil, even new carpet. Go explore their easy-to-use website today to find the solution to all your auto parts needs. Go to rockauto.com and see all the parts available for your car or truck. Right, Locked On in there. How did you hear about us box so they know we sent you? Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com. Thank you again for making Locked On Twins your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms. So looking at this free agent class, the big 5 at the top, when I talk about the big 5, Carlos Correa, it's funny. I think last year I called Anderson Simmons, Didi Gregorius, and Marcus Semien a big 3. That's hilarious considering this group. Carlos Correa, Corey Seager, Marcus Semien, Javier Baez, Trevor Story. So from an offensive standpoint, I think the best bat in this group is Corey Seager. And I think the best offensive fit for the Twins is Corey Seager, another left-handed bat. If they're going to keep Donaldson, they have and they keep Byron Buxton, 2 great right-handed bats. You have some other guys, Martin coming up, Lewis potentially coming up, Mitch Garver's still there if he is. I think Corey Seager makes the most sense offensively for the Twins. However, Corey Seager's defense leaves a lot to be desired. And when we get into these free agent profiles, we'll break that down a little bit more. But from an offensive standpoint, I think Seager's the best fit. He's the only left-handed bat of these 5, and I really, really like that. I like the idea of adding just a potent left-handed bat to the middle of the Twins lineup. The plausibility meter on Seager coming to Minnesota, I think, is very low. He's in LA. I think there's going to be potentially, I don't think the Dodgers are going to re-sign him. I think they traded for Trey Turner to keep him at short and have Gavin Lux at second next year. So I don't think he'll re-sign with LA, but I think there'll be West Coast market potentially for Seager in Seattle. Maybe the Angels, you could see potentially some work around there. Carlos Correa, is probably the best all-around player of this group. Defensively was amazing this year. Offensively at the plate is a great hitter. But the most injury questions probably of the bunch as well. But Carlos Correa is the best all-around player. Plausibility for him coming to Minnesota, I'd put at approximately 0. I think there's no chance that Carlos Correa signs with the Twins. Word is that he wants to be in a big market. That is not Minnesota. So I don't think Carlos Correa is going to Minnesota. There's a chance he goes to Detroit, but if it's true about the big market, he's not going to Detroit either. Could see the Mets linking up with Francisco Lindor out there and potentially Baez as well, but that remains to be seen. Absolutely amazing for Oakland in 2019, but it looked like an outlier, as 2019 did for a lot of guys. But Semien kind of quieted those concerns this year with Toronto at second base. And this is funny. The two best hitting second basemen in the American League, Marcus Semien and Jorge Polanco, making switches from shortstop and then offensively having career years. And I wonder if Marcus Semien himself will want to stay in a second base role, if he has desire to move to short. Also, if the team, the Twins and teams in free agency feel that he's better equipped at second defensively and offensively, because Marcus Semien wasn't that great of a defender at short before the move to second. Now he's a Gold Glove finalist, whatever that means, at second base. Now, Javier Baez, divisive player, very controversial in terms of who he is and his style as well. A lot of strikeouts, low on base, big time power, huge swings, a lot of swings and misses, but he's a terrific defender. And Baez in his prime has been amazing defensively. I think he slid a little bit this year, but just an amazing defender at short, highlight reel plays, top of the line defender. And that's, if for the Twins, could be desirable for them to go after someone who can defend like they did with Anderson Simmons last year. And maybe Javier Baez on a 1-year deal, a 1-year prove-it deal after kind of a disappointing season, traded to the Mets. In the second half, he was great with New York. But I think of the group, Baez is probably the most likely to take a 1-year deal. Trevor Story could also take a 1-year deal. And Story's super interesting. All these players have their pros and their cons. Story's also an amazing defender at short, terrific top-of-the-line defensive player, all-around great player, Trevor Story, ever since he entered the league, really. But you have the Coors concerns. There's huge splits. His home and road splits at Coors and away from Coors, massive, just not the same player away from Coors. And that was the case with DJ LeMahieu, Nolan Arenado, and they've kind of put those concerns to rest. Now, Arenado did have one of his worst offensive seasons of the last, 5 or 6 years playing in St. Louis. A little bit different at that ballpark. I think for a right-handed hitter at Target Field, you can quell some of those concerns a little bit because it's a right-handed hitter's park. I'd say it's a pitcher's park for lefties and a hitter's park for righties. And that's why Nelson Cruz, I think, thrived. Nelson Cruz thrived because Nelson Cruz is Nelson Cruz, but also at Target Field because of left field and the short porch a little bit there at Target Field. And that's why I think Josh Donaldson was on their radar too. I think Marcus Semien, right-handed pull power, Javier Baez, Trevor Story. I'm interested in bringing in a right-handed bat. And I'll tell you what, if they bring in a right-handed shortstop on a $22 million average annual value a year, it'll be really interesting then, because do you keep Josh Donaldson and all his salary, all of his $21.75 million, I think it is this year, and have like a $50 million left side of your infield? I think that, and both right-handed. So if you sign Semien or Baez or Story, you have a very right-handed lineup again, I think. And as I said with Seager, it'd be really interesting to bring in another left-handed bat, but that's just not an option outside of Corey Seager. You could bring in another left-handed bat in the outfield like Corey Dickerson and give you a little bit more of that differentiation in the lineup. But it's really interesting because if you sign Semien or you sign Baez or you sign Story, let's say to a 1-year deal or even a 4 or 5-year deal, the Twins really committing to a long-term shortstop solution. How much money can you eat with Donaldson and that player that doesn't go to the rotation? And I think that's legitimate concerns over that. Like, every dime you spend at shortstop is a dime taken away from a rotation that desperately needs help. Let's look at an offseason plan I have that would, I think, really improve the rotation, also improve their situation at short, also staying in a reasonable payroll range. After this word from BetOnline. BetOnline is back and better than ever. A new web interface for the start of the basketball season and more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline remains your number one spot for all the basketball and football action this season. Head to our new updated desktop or mobile website to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use the promo code LOCKEDON to receive your bonus. From basketball, football, baseball playoffs, NHL, boxing, and UFC, right to your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. BetOnline, where the game starts. Let's look at a potential offseason here for the Twins. Looking at your screen, this is what a $140 million payroll would bring, and that's right around where they should be, in my opinion, in 2022. Mitch Garver's your catcher on opening day. Miguel Sano at first, Jorge Polanco at second, Jose Miranda at third. So Donaldson is traded in this scenario. This is one of many blueprints we'll look at. Donaldson is traded, and we're eating $10 million off his contract this year. So a little less than half, assuming the Twins get some sort of prospect in return for Josh Donaldson. Marcus Semien is signed in this case. The Twins finally lock up Semien, $25 million a year, let's say for 4 years, $100 million, or 5 years, $125. Got Corey Dickerson in left field, Buxton in center, Kirilloff in right. You will notice Max Kepler has also been traded in this scenario. Kepler and Donaldson potentially traded in a deal for Sean Manaea. You can see in the starting rotation. Luis Arraez is your DH. A lot of people want him to DH. I can see why. Defensively, just not a plus really anywhere. Brent Rooker's your fourth outfielder. Gilberto Celestino, or whoever wins that last job off the bench out of spring training, with Nick Gordon as your utility man locked in, and then Ryan Jeffers at backup catcher. Marcus Semien and Robbie Ray, both Toronto Blue Jays, both one-year deals. Maybe they follow each other and they both sign with the Twins. Robbie Ray, $23 million, 4 or 5 year deal again for Ray. Sean Manaea would be a trade with Oakland, and we'll break these guys down a little bit more in upcoming episodes. But Robbie Ray, clear number 1 this year with Toronto, big time stuff. Finally kind of matched it up, his stuff with the numbers. Sean Manaea is a guy, lefty, add a lefty to the rotation. He's been solid as nails for Oakland. Michael Pineda comes back for 2 years and $10 million in this case, $5 million a year. I would much prefer to sign Pineda for 2 years at $5 million a year than 1 year and $10 million, if that makes sense. From an average annual value standpoint, but also for a payroll standpoint to keep it in a reasonable range in this case. Bailey Ober, Joe Ryan, rounding out the rotation. Taylor Rogers, Tyler Duffy, Caleb Thielbar, Jorge Alcala, Randy Domnak, Giovanni Moran, and then 2 more signings. Ryan Tepera for $5 million, Kendall Graveman for $6.5 million, 2 right-handed late inning options for the Twins. So here's what you're looking at on this right side. Luis Arraez leading off against righties, Buxton hitting second, Semien third, Polanco cleaning up, Garver 5, Kirilloff 6, Sano 7, Dickerson 8, Jose Miranda 9, and then your bench is Rooker, Gordon, Jeffers, and whoever wins that job out of spring training. So Celestino's penciled in. Rotation: Robbie Ray, Sean Manaea, Michael Pineda, Joe Ryan, Randy Domnak, Bailey Ober. Randy Domnak's your 6th in that case, and he's starting in the bullpen. Kendall Graveman, Ryan Tepera, Taylor Rogers, Tyler Duffy, Jorge Alcala, Thielbar, Caleb Thielbar, and Giovanni Moran. So 3 good left-handed relievers and some really good right-handed relievers in there as well with Graveman, Tepera, Duffy, and Alcala. That is some upside. I mean, that team, clearly the weakness is rotation depth, but if Joe Ryan and Bailey Ober throw 150 innings of league average ball, I think that's a really tough team. I think that team competes. I think that team is one that could win, and that's a team, when I talk about ceiling, that could reach a ceiling. I think offensively, with the addition of Semien, if he's the player he was last year, even a little bit worse, you're adding another middle of the order, big time bat. Of course, in this case, Donaldson's traded. And here's the thing. You have Donaldson locked up at third base for $21.75 million this year, $22 million, let's say. $22 million. If you sign Marcus Semien for $25 million, then you trade Donaldson and even eat half his money, you're basically getting Semien for $10 million less than what you signed him for, because Semien is replacing Donaldson's right-handed bat in the lineup. And you'd say, why wouldn't you just keep Donaldson in that case? Well, you have Jose Miranda, who looks like he's ready to go at third and was amazing in the minors last year. So it's very easy then to just plug Miranda in at third, hit him at the bottom of the order, get him some development, and then Semien's at short where you have a clear hole. So that fills a hole, and it gets Miranda to the majors. I think Miranda should be in the majors, and it gives him an opportunity to have an everyday role, which I think unless he does have an everyday role, he shouldn't be called up and shouldn't be on the roster. So this is an interesting little blueprint. It's one of many, but I think what I'm going to try to show here through these is that the Twins can put a competitive team on the field. The most difficult part of all this is not the payroll number. It's not, finding guys who can help you. It's convincing those guys to come to Minnesota. I think that's their biggest roadblock. I don't think they have a money issue this offseason. I think they're going to be able to get who they want to get payroll wise. It's just going to be, can you make a competitive enough offer and convince these guys to come and convince them that you're going to put a winning team on the field? Because if I'm Robbie Ray or Marcus Semien or I guess Shamanaya doesn't have a choice in a trade. 1 year left at $10.2 million. If I'm any of these guys, Kendall Graveman, Ryan Tepera, I want some assurance that the team is going to try to compete and that the team's going to try to win, or else I'm not signing with them in free agency. So it's all about convincing. I like this little blueprint, though, and I hope you tell me your thoughts. Follow me on Twitter at NashWalker9. Follow the show at Locked On Twins. Thank you so much. Tomorrow we'll talk about the Twins hiring a new hitting coach. We'll talk about him, and we will talk more about the offseason, what lies ahead for the Twins. Thanks so much for listening. Have a great day.